Good evening. Welcome to my shitty back alley. I like to read visual novels. Chances are, if you're watching anything on this channel, you do too. But whilst reading Tayatama Kiss on My Deity for the videos I did on it, I came to a sudden realization during the myriad H scenes. Now, I'm gonna do my best to skirt around this in a way that makes those dear YouTube advertisers happy, so this subject's a little hard to talk about. Check out Patreon for uncensored vids, by the way. But for lack of a better way to put it, I wondered to myself, how does the average person consume eroge? Or, more simply put, who's out here gooning to every H scene?
I'm over here stroking my dick. I got lotion on my dick right now. I'm just stroking my shit.
It's a real quandary, because let's consider the setup. You got you, your computer, or your reading device of choice. I don't shun on mobile, and presumably one arm preoccupied with the left-handed Suzuki method. Sure, you could set it to auto-read. Personally, I get frustrated with the speed of such things. Either it's too damn fast and I can't focus on anything, stroke game gets all out of whack, or it's too slow and I lose interest. To have one hand free to click and read at my own pace is a must, or I will bash my head in. Though I will concede I might be a little deviated from the norm on that one. Let's also consider that it isn't always the time or place to goon. There are many instances where I'd readily read a visual novel but wouldn't necessarily commit to the ritual. If I hear my roommates being queers outside my door, for instance, probably not the time. I got to do. Life's hard when you work a full-time job sucking the life out of people in these back alleys. And I ain't going to work with no sweaty thighs. Additionally, there's the factor to consider that not every eroge scene is necessarily well written. Let's take my beloved Tsukihime for example. I adore the VN, but I will be the first to say that its eroge doesn't exactly hit high on the titillation scale. This doesn't mean it's bad inherently. I think the way Suki uses sex in the story is pretty good actually. Though I am a wet noodle during those scenes, my heart boner is bricked. But other than Lin, I guess, I'm not revisiting any of those scenes for explicit reasons. And even then, if you think I'm trudging through Kagetsu Toya for sweet cat lollipops every time I get the urge, you are mistaken. Basically though, the point I'm getting at is, with stories like Suki, the eroge isn't really what I'm there for by proxy of the writing not being up to snuff, and the story itself not really fitting those scenes in the best. Again, contextually what the sex means for tales like Suki is good. It's just not good in a porn way, and I care way more while I'm reading them about the overarching plot. Truly, I feel like many VNs suffer that exact fate. How these stories use eroge is entirely divorced from how good it is as a piece of pornography, you dig? If I'm invested in a story, I don't exactly get the urge to take a pit stop with the 30-minute cleanup. Additionally, let's take into account that these stories simply aren't structured in a way that they expect you to be doing the deed whilst reading them. What do I mean by that? Well, let's use Fate as an example this time. I know I draw from the same bag of tricks very often on this channel, but it's literally just because I know everyone in my audience is going to know what I'm talking about, so bear with me. Anyway, in Fate, the eroge is almost always sandwiched between two pivotal plot points. Maybe there will be a brief lull before and after, but by and large, you're ready to see what lies beyond that horizon by the time Shiro's enraptured by Saber's beautiful toes. For instance, the first scene in the Fate route. Some context, again, plot sandwich type shit. Shiro and Co are running away from Berserker, some questionably written eroge happens, and then the fight with Berserker happens. The bread on that sandwich is some gourmet During the eroge, my mind isn't on, wow, bisexuality is so cool, though it is. It's on, this is great and all. The steak is juicy, the lobster is buttery, but I want to know how the fight's gonna go down, man. That's what the story's been leading up to, and knowing that, well, sure, the art is pleasing to look at sometimes. I'm not gonna stop to hence why you'll never hear me bemoan the removal of such scenes in the remaster. This extends beyond the usual type moon subjects too. For instance, I mentioned at the start of this video that I had this very thought while reading Tayatama Kiss on My Deity. In that VN, the eroge is almost always used as an end-of-arc treat for the reader. Jingling keys for the shonen audience for getting through the perceived shitty slice-of-life content. You get this big climactic fight, you get some resolving action, and then Yuri pops up and he's just like, "I'ma go f my sister." Those H scenes, though arousing, never once stirred within me the urge, for lack of a better term. Maybe once the day was ending and I shut off my computer, found a cozy little spot in this back alley over here. Sure, I'd pop open in hentai and browse the incest tag. But in the moment, nah, I gotta read that next arc and find how Yuri and Yumina are gonna hide their incestuous relationship next. That's what I'm focused on. I'm here for the sauce. I'm not here for the you know what I mean? Sorry for all the you knows and you dig. I just rewatched Black Dynamite. Great movie. All this to say, while I appreciate the effort eroge writers go through, if the VN isn't specifically tailored around the goon sesh, I ain't all that interested in clapping my meat to the beat of that plot drum. But, what about cases where the visual novel is explicitly built around that? It's here where I want to talk about a VN I mentioned various times throughout those 2 Tayatama videos, and that is Euphoria. Its eroge and Tayatama's contrasted in my mind like 2 sore thumbs, both bruised with distinctly different colors. Unlike other visual novels, Euphoria is structured in such a way that stringing along arguably makes the reading experience better. You read it in bits and pieces, session to session, if you will, and the visual novel plays into that exceptionally well for the first half. Euphoria, for those who aren't familiar, is about the f***ed-up predilections of our main character, Keisuke. How he ended up having said interest, how though he is forced to play into those interests, he still has a heart, and how he reconciles his desire with that heart of his. The whole VN is set up with the characters waking up in blank connecting chambers. The only way out is to do the morbid sexual acts described by the disembodied voice in the room. Something which Keisuke takes pleasure in the moment, but later on feels remorse for as soon as that high's over. In other words, once the post-nut clarity kicks in, shit gets real. Euphoria is one of those visual novels in which separating fiction from reality is a must. If you sincerely think that gooning to any of these tags makes you a bad person, this is not the story for you. I bring this up because the visual novel pretty explicitly wants you to be in Keisuke's shoes. To take sardonic joy in watching these awful acts unfold. I ain't gonna lie to y'all, I be going into some heinous stuff like Euphoria sometimes. But what makes it interesting for this discussion is exactly that act. If you truly put yourself into Keisuke's head and along, by the time the deed is done and your lower body is just a mess, the VN literally takes a second to say, okay, go clean up, then come back, we're gonna talk about this. Every eroge scene in Euphoria is followed by Keisuke and whoever he dragged along with him, talking about the act, discussing how it made them feel, why they felt the things they did. Just deconstructing the whole thing, really. And though you obviously aren't the characters in the story, it still provides a very interesting discussion logically in the brain. You know what I mean. Even when the VN isn't as in your face and has some truly wholesome erotic moments, it's still followed by the same type of thing, comparing and contrasting them, how one's carnally appealing to the main character and how one's emotionally fulfilling, and how those 2 different sides, if you marry them, can provide a healthy sexual relationship and future for yourself. It takes those 2 sides and shows off the healthy points of one and the not so healthy points of the other, and it raises very interesting discussions, This goes for every act in Euphoria. Even when, spoilers by the way, skip ahead to this timestamp, when Keisuke himself is raped and has trauma flashbacks to when he was first assaulted, how that influenced the person he is today, how that basically set a seed for the he's into now. Euphoria taking such a big focus on the eroge makes it one of those things that actively encourages you to engage with it as a piece of pornography, though obviously it goes off the deep end sometimes. There is some crazy shit in that visual novel. I'm talking very broadly here, very spectrum-y, you know what I mean? Like very avant-garde. I'm talking ideas and shit. But because it is more or less a piece of pornography that it wants you to engage with it as a piece of pornography, that doesn't make it any lesser of a work. In fact, I'd argue it makes it better for it. I always wanted to make a video on the thing. It was even a Patreon request at one time, but I've always struggled with how to talk about it or like put any footage on screen of it without utterly censoring the out of everything and just making it a real mess. But this video right here will be a good testing ground. I think if this doesn't get demonetized, if I can somehow skirt around that, it's gonna show me that I can open up and discuss a lot more things on this channel of that nature, which would be cool. Anyhow, there's one more thing I want to talk about before I let you go. You can go out of this back alley after that, it's fine. Who the f is nutting multiple times in one sexual encounter? I see the shit in every visual novel. Everyone does this. The respawn time on that shit is not that quick. I don't know, are Japanese men just like built different or something? If you eat 50 pounds of sushi and nothing else because racial stereotypes, does that mean like you can just come infinitely forever? I don't know. It's very bizarre, very weird. Takes me out of the experience, man. Takes me out of the experience. Anyways, I posed the question to my Twitter as well, just for funsies. Phrase something like, do you just read when you're reading eroge, or do you stroke your shit? And they seem pretty split. But some people did say it depends on the work, which is the conclusion I came to and makes me feel smart, so we're just gonna go with that. Thank you for watching. New videos every 1 to 2 weeks for realsies this time. I worked on a massive backlog. Support me on Patreon so I can make more videos more frequently. Also, early videos on that coming up. This one's probably been up there for like a week already. Just saying. There's probably some shit on there you might be interested in. Do all the YouTube stuff, and I will see you all next week with a fun story I can't believe no one's ever covered on this site before. One of oral hygiene and 2 siblings. Anyways, bye. Thank you for visiting the alley. Have fun.